Breaking news. Alec Baldwin settles lawsuit with Rust cinematographer's family. Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Without exception, all the headlines say the same thing. Alec Baldwin settles, or Rust producers settle. But I think they've got it the wrong way round. I think it feels more like Halyna's husband, who filed the suit to begin with, has settled. You may remember there was a slew of lawsuits that came out, and it took quite a while for Halyna's husband to bring forth his suit, but it eventually came out in mid-February 2022. The suit charged that Baldwin recklessly shot and killed his wife, Halyna Hutchins, and that the production's, quote, aggressive cost-cutting, end quote, had endangered the crew. So what has changed since February? What has changed since around about 8 months ago? Remember, Halyna's husband, the estate involved, even put together an animation video. So they seem very invested. What has changed? Well, one thing that has changed is that the production will resume. The Rust movie will continue with Matthew Hutchins, the widower, now as executive producer. That is part of the terms of the settlement. Also, the film will be directed by Souza, the movie's original director. We actually haven't heard from Souza for a very long time, right? So it feels like Alec Baldwin and everyone else that was sort of involved in this, certainly the producers, are getting what they wanted all along, to just continue making their movie, to finish their movie. The only settlement, it seems, is that Halyna's husband is now involved in the production as a sort of consolation prize. Now, I think you've got to wonder if you were Halyna, if Halyna was sort of an apparition that has been watching the events unfold almost for a year. If you were her, if you were shot, do you think this is the outcome you would have wanted? Would this be justice in your eyes, in your heart? If she had any recriminations against Baldwin, I doubt whether she'd feel the same way against the entire crew. I doubt whether she'd feel that the entire crew must be punished and, have all of this taken away from them because of someone else's mistake. But would she also be that forgiving? And what about the other loose ends? The armorer, will she be back? The ammo supplier, will he be back supplying dummy rounds? The assistant director, will he be back at his post too? Before we get to the rest of this episode, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So even if these crew members are back at their posts, I doubt whether that means necessarily that there won't be any charges. The charges haven't been finalized. The report hasn't been finalized. So the question is, what impact will this have on that? And I think the answer is it may have some impact, because you've got to wonder, if you're the district attorney, and this case is breaking the bank. It's literally a lot of stress. It's very expensive. It's using up a lot of resources and time. If even the victim's family are giving this a pass, shouldn't you? Now, going to the article in the New York Times, Halyna's husband was quoted as follows. He said, "The filming of Rust, which I will now executive produce, will resume with all the original principal players on board in January 2023. And that is from a statement by Matthew Hutchins. Now, I think principal players actually means actors, but one does wonder what it means in terms of crew. He went on to say, through his lawyer, he said, quote, "I have no interest in engaging in recriminations or attribution of blame to the producers or Mr. Baldwin. All of us believe Halyna's death was a terrible accident. I am grateful that the producers and the entertainment community have come together to pay tribute to Halyna's final work," end quote. Now, if you think of those words, all of us believe it was a terrible accident. And you almost kind of get the idea, okay, well, let's have the movie continue. Let's continue making the movie and let things kind of go. Well, is that what the district attorney thinks? That all of us believe it was just a terrible accident? Has it been investigated, including by the FBI, for almost a year because it was just a terrible accident? Now, I have to say this is a surprise. On the one hand, one feels it is good-hearted of Matthew Hutchins. It's generous of spirit. On the other hand, given how long it has taken to reach this point, almost a full year, it's hard to believe Halyna's husband has felt good-hearted all along. He certainly wasn't, or didn't seem that good-hearted when he went on to the, I think it was Good Morning America, and he said certain things about what Alec Baldwin said in that ABC News interview. But one does wonder, has he been given legal advice? And this whole question about the New Mexico asking for asking actually for over $600,000 and only getting $300,000. He may have been given legal advice that winning a suit against Baldwin could be ruinous, given New Mexico's budget versus the actor's mega wealth. And, if you think about New Mexico, a state's budget, what about an individual's budget? Now, over the past year, one person at the center of this tragedy has maintained a steady silence. That was the director, Joel Souza. We've never really heard anything from him throughout this entire saga. And one wonders why. Well, Souza has broken his silence now at last as well. He said, quote, "Those of us who were lucky enough to have spent time with Halyna knew her to be exceedingly talented, kind, creative, and a source of incredible positive energy. I only wish the world had gotten to know her under different circumstances, as it surely would have through her amazing work. In my own attempts to heal, any decision to return to finish directing the film could only make sense for me if it was done with the involvement of Matt and the Hutchins family. Though certainly bittersweet, I am pleased that together we will now complete what Halyna and I started. My every effort on this film will be devoted to honoring Halyna's legacy and making her proud. It is a privilege to see this through on her behalf." End quote. We can see now how and why there was no incentive for many of the cast and crew to break rank if the idea of completing the movie was always on the cards. If you broke rank, well, that would potentially kick you out of the production. Would you want to do that? Everyone in the original production gets called back, or it feels like that. But then one does wonder, does that include the script supervisor? Does that include the gaffer? Does that include the camera crew who walked out? Meanwhile, there's also been a brief statement from Baldwin's attorney. He said, quote, "Throughout this difficult process, everyone has maintained the specific desire to do what is best for Halyna's son. We are grateful to everyone who contributed to the resolution of this tragic and painful situation." End quote. That's a statement from the lawyer for Mr. Baldwin, a guy called Luke Nikas. Now, it's interesting that Baldwin's attorney mentions the best interests of Halyna's son, not the director, not even the spokesperson talking on behalf of Matthew Hutchins. It's interesting where this issue of Halyna's son comes from. Then there was also a lawyer for Russ Movie Productions, Melina Spadoni. She said the resolution marks an important step forward in celebrating Halyna's life and honoring her work. So quite a lot of PR going on, big statements, and one's got to wonder about possible charges still being filed, despite all of this PR. And whether this movie being filmed in New Mexico will actually have an impact on those charges. This is a huge PR coup just prior to the release of the final report from the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office. I mean, think about this just in terms of timing. You have this big turnaround just before the report comes out from the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office. Could that report now be edited? Could it be changed? Will it be? According to Deadline, quote, today's announcement comes as the final report of the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office investigation into Hutchinson's death and what really went down at the Bonanza Creek Ranch that terrible day is expected to be handed over soon to local District Attorney Mary Carmack Altwies. Look at those words. What really went down? And, oh no, we want to go back to filming the movie, even before we know what really went down. The District Attorney, given what has just happened, one wonders, is she going to pull an Alex Hunter, the District Attorney in Boulder during the John Benet Ramsey case? Is she going to decide at the last moment there isn't enough evidence to press any charges?
I and my prosecution task force believe we do not have sufficient evidence to warrant the filing of charges against anyone who has been investigated at this time.
Given the recent request for a budget to do exactly that, to prosecute, you would imagine that was done because they thought there was enough evidence. But if that is what happened, it will be an ironic outcome, wouldn't you say? I think where we are right now in this saga reveals a truism in true crime. It's that justice is hard and that one's got to really fight for it. And sometimes one has to be realistic. What ultimately happens isn't necessarily the right outcome or the outcome that we want. Sometimes it's a realistic result. And you'd imagine if anyone is realistic about the law, a lawyer would be. And Halyna's husband is a lawyer. Alec Baldwin seems pleased with the outcome, however. He's already posted it on Instagram. What about you? Do you think it was the right outcome? And do you think charges will be brought or should be brought? Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.